I hope you're well. I'm fantastic. Why? Because I just received the first copy, the advanced copy of my new book, which can now be bought from Edward Elgar, Amazon, other good booksellers. It's a fantastic feeling when you get hold of a new book because you obviously, as the author, know exactly how many hours of work went into creating the book, working with the publishers to get the book to that perfect point where everyone says it's ready to roll. But for me, in receiving this book, and this is the fourth book that I've written with Edward Elgar, who are fantastic to work with, in putting this book together, I feel like I've done less than half the work. Because I could take the academic credit for having created the book. There it is. Well done. But for me, that's not why I wrote the book. I wrote the book for you. I want to help other educators to think how it is that they might approach their responsibilities, their opportunities in the world of entrepreneurship education. And so this book, How to Teach Entrepreneurship, is not prescriptive. It does not normative. It tries to find you an opportunity to find yourself and to think about the nature of your students and to contemplate a whole range of issues and questions that you can work through. At the heart of the book, I have obviously my own biases in here, but at the heart of this book is a concern for this idea of self-negotiated action. I see this as the minimal outcome that all entrepreneurship educators, regardless of their context or aims, should be incorporating into what they're doing. Many of you will go beyond it, that's fine, but I'm talking about a minimal outcome. So in this context here, self-negotiated action, it's the agency that individuals demonstrate in directing their conscious thinking and acting towards an alignment of their inner and outer worlds in order that they might succeed. Many of you will go beyond this, and that's fine. But I think it's important that we think about what are the foundational, minimal things that we should be at least ticking off as we move forward. Whether we're creating value, educating for confidence or employability skills, doesn't really matter. Something should represent a minimal foundation. And so I've placed that inside the book, and hopefully you'll see the value of that. The book is organized viewing entrepreneurship education as a game. So let's not take it too seriously. It may be our vocational calling, it may be our lifehood, and it may be very important in the lives of our students. And therefore I think it's important for us to realize how it all works. Who are the players? What are the rules? How do you play the game? How do you score the game? And so that's the way the book is organized. So, exactly as I'm doing today, I intend to provide you with a series of, let's call them seminars, where I'm going to work through each chapter and explain what my motivations were in organizing the material and what my hopes are for you as an educator in being able to work with that material yourself and to find your own answers and your own solutions as they're required in your own context and for the needs and individual needs of your students. So let's just take a moment to think about what's actually inside the book. There's 4 sections: players, rules, playing the game, and scoring the game. Let's think about that first section first. Chapter 1 is focused very much on you, the educator, and thinking about what is your inner world. I'm very much motivated here by this notion of Parker J. Palmer, who says we teach who we are. And if that is the case, then who are you, right? And so this chapter is very much aimed at helping you to find who you are. I've afforded you space in the appendices to think about developing a teaching manifesto. In fact, I've shared the essence of my teaching manifesto with you to give you a sense of how you might approach that task. I've shared with you a very abridged version of my teaching philosophy, and I've provided you with space to be able to work on that as you're working through the entire book. And I've also provided you with an opportunity to start thinking as you're going through the book about this notion of a scorecard. How would you score yourself, right? Chapter 2 thinks about where this game is being played. In this sense, we talk about a notion of an activity environment. So now we're talking about your outer world, right? And you notice with the self-negotiated action, we're talking about an alignment between inner and outer worlds. It relates to you too, okay? The notion of self-negotiated action isn't something that's only a property of a student and their endeavours. It relates to every person, including educators. Chapter 3 is about our students, the most important players in the game, and their individuality and their diverse needs. Section 2 talks about the rules of the game. Chapter 4 is very much focused on the notion of transformational learning. What does that mean? What does that require? What does that need in terms of its operation in the lives of individual students? Chapter 5 introduces a range of contemporary frameworks for thinking about entrepreneurship education. Chapter 6 introduces the Crown method of analysis that myself, Andy, and Kath Panaluna have put together over the last few years. Crown is an acronym. It stands for classifying, reasoning, outcomes, ways, and networks. And we believe that this way of thinking about entrepreneurship education is a way of being able to create a common language that will enable you to communicate with other stakeholders on your institution and to develop your scholarship of teaching and learning in ways that are consistent and able to interact meaningfully with other entrepreneurship educators. The third section relates to your ability to play the game. So chapter 7 is very much focused on your context and thinking about your purpose. Okay, so again, nothing prescriptive here, nothing normative. It's really an opportunity for you to find your own way through this process. Chapter 8 deals with this issue of strategic choice. And we argue that this is a really important part of entrepreneurship education. If it's not something we can simply take off a shelf and give to students, then what is it? A set of choices which we support the student to take and to journey through. Chapter 9 talks about the types of common practices that exist globally, many of which you may already use, some of which you might be quite interested in understanding why people use them and how they use them. Section 4 deals with how would we score the game. And it's very much a qualitative process that's directly linked to what we know about the scholarship of teaching and learning. So there's five key areas that we can really work through there. And so not only are you scoring the game, but you've got an opportunity to develop yourself in terms of your own scholarly approach. Chapter 11 returns us back to what was introduced in Chapter 2, that being the activity environment, but this time a deeper dive into the notion of activity theory, where we can think about your ability to understand what are the rules, what are the roles that people have, what are the tools that people use, what's the culture that exists, who are the subjects that are related to this activity, what are the outcomes that we're trying to achieve. How do all of these things interact in ways that more often than not won't be perfect? So activity theory provides you with a means of being able to identify contradictions. If you have a purpose, if that's related directly to your context, then assuming that it's not all perfect, Chapter 11 provides you with some tools to be able to panel beat the challenges that you've got, to get rid of some of the dents, to try and identify those blocking points. Chapter 12 allows us to review everything that we've covered in the book. Think about the challenges that are ever present and the opportunities that are constantly in front of you. So I hope that this book may enable you to spend more time thinking about your thinking. We would like our students to develop those metacognitive skills. They're just as important for us. So, I'm going to start the process of developing my little mini seminars, putting them onto my blog here and explaining the logic of what I'm trying to achieve with this book. And I hope that it can create some value for you too. Until we talk again. Cheers.